I'm happy to see you folks here today. Happy to be here a second time for this conference. And okay, it's up. Great. Thank you. So we can dive in. I'll come to these disclaimers later. I'll introduce myself first, so it gives you the context why I'm talking about this topic. I am currently the head SecOps, at least the functional heads secure operations at Cariad, and we are responsible for everything that is in the cloud, which is in the car, which is in IT. So I'm coming from the automotive side of things, and we use cloud heavily, especially multi-cloud. So we are in Azure, AWS, or GCP, right? And we have thousands of machines up and running at any point of time because of all the backend applications that you have, including, say, remote lock, unlock, remote heating, and stuff like that, right? And my team is responsible for managing the vulnerabilities across these tenants, right? Both in the development and the production stage. Not only on the CSMS side of things, not only say 21434, the application, but also on the IT side of things, right? So 27001, the virtual machines, the security of the virtual machines. So we deal with a lot of vulnerabilities and a lot of escalations, lot of incidents. So we are also responsible for ISMS. We are also responsible for CERT, incident management, and Zeem. So all of these three things together work in an orchestrated manner, and I just want to present an insight in how we do it. You won't see any branding of Cariad. I got late in getting approvals from the HR, so I have to just put it minus the branding, right? And please, this is an open discussion. You can ask questions at any point of time. You don't have to wait till the end, right? All opinions are expressed are my opinions. These are not nothing to do with my organization, right? I will not. Oh, hi. Yeah. So I will not speak about. So we have our colleagues also here. Happy to see you folks. Yeah. Hi. Yes. So I will not speak about tools, and I'll not speak about any particular vendor or any particular cloud platform, right? This is how we face this challenge of managing these vulnerabilities that come to us from various sources, right? Including what we do internally with scanning and testing and stuff, right? So how do we handle this? Right. Why is this topic important, and why did I put this up for a discussion today? All this while I've been talking about vulnerability management in various forums. I think I presented vulnerability management even last time. But having something like a centralized vulnerability management overview is really important. And I will try to tell you why I chose this topic, okay? It's impossible to safeguard what you don't know. If you don't know your assets, if you don't know your vulnerabilities, I'm so sorry about this, right? If you don't know your assets, you don't know your vulnerabilities, it's not possible to secure them, right? Many times you have virtual machines being spun up in an organization to support some ad hoc application or to support some team that requires some urgent support, shadow IT kind of stuff, right? And many times there are teams which have during mergers or acquisitions or other things, you get other teams which have their machines, they are part of your organization now, you're not tracking those machines, or at least they are not in your asset inventory, right? So it's important to have a good asset inventory without which you cannot monitor your applications. And if you have a ton of vulnerabilities, I have a question here. How many of you actually deal with vulnerability management? Awesome. SecOps? Anyone from SecOps side? Okay, great. Yes. So at least the vulnerability management folks in SecOps would know that your normal reports will have thousands of vulnerabilities. And this is 1,000 is just a low number, right? And if you have hundreds of virtual machines and you have hundreds of applications and hundreds of servers, right? I mentioned that we manage CSMS and ISMS both. So we look at IT, we look at applications, we look at ECUs, everything that is there in the car, right? And the backend also. With all these reports, to get an actual analysis of what is the health of the organization, I'm not talking about a team or a single application, I'm talking about the organization. to do something really insightful or have some kind of a deep inspection of these reports becomes really difficult unless you have it centralized, right? So I'll also hint about tools, and we can talk offline if somebody is interested how we are managing it. I will not put in the slides here, right? But security efforts are overwhelmed by vast number of vulnerabilities, right? So when you have very high number of vulnerabilities, you're only looking at, okay, how do we get KPIs? How do we get numbers? How do you open tickets against these vulnerabilities, right? You're not actually checking which vulnerabilities are critical, which vulnerabilities are repeating, or which systems are repeatedly having issues, right? You don't get to know these statistics because you are kind of daily dealing with these emerging situations where every day there's a new report, hundreds of vulnerabilities have come in, and you are just trying to get them fixed, right? The previous speaker mentioned something that teams don't care about security, they just want to deliver something. I almost 100%, 99% I agree with him, right? Because teams, for them, security is a hindrance. They want to deliver their products quickly. They really are not focusing on security. So I'm with you on that one. That's the point I've said, right? Collaboration from development teams is always lacking, right? So you want to track with the development teams. You want to understand the challenges they face. You want to help them in adding to the security. It doesn't come that easily, right? And if you folks have heard recently about the JLR case, right? You know how it started, right? The JLR. What is the first breach point in JLR? At least that's what is there in the news. Yeah, I think they started with the SAP server, and it was a vulnerable SAP server from which they went inside, okay? But even if you don't take JLR, you take any other company, you take the ongoing thing with BMW or any other company, right? 60% of the times attacks happen because of known vulnerabilities, right? These are known vulnerabilities in your software, in your virtual machines, in your physical servers, right? It's very easy to fix them. I mean, comparatively easier to fix them than having the headache of, dealing with an attack, a cyber attack. And this is what is lacking because teams don't take these vulnerabilities seriously. So, you end up dealing with an incident rather than a vulnerability, right? So again, the previous speaker mentioned that leadership, involvement and endorsement is important, right? I can agree 100% on that one. What is really important is people, processes, and tools. These are the three pillars of security, I would say, from SecOps perspective or from any organization. Getting the right people on board who understand security, who understand vulnerability management, who understand not only cloud but ISMS overlap is really crucial. Defining processes, like you mentioned, right? Having processes and agreed upon processes is important. Because if you are even if you are a smaller, medium-sized organization, right, you have your GRC teams who are coming up with their processes, but the processes are not followed by the development teams, right? It's not going to work. So have processes which are agreed upon by the organization and it is endorsed by the management. Without the management support, best of processes will not work. And what are these processes? Processes like SSDLC, Secure Software Development Lifecycle, or even things like how frequently we will scan, SLAs for fixing vulnerabilities, blah, blah, Tools is also really important. Getting the right kind of tools is important because without these tools, you cannot automate. And then it is impossible for a team to really look into all these high number of vulnerabilities. I see a couple of folks from SecOps. How many of you have more than maybe 15 people in your teams? 10 people? 5 people? Less than 5 people, right? Exactly, that's the story. You have very less number of people in secure operations, in security, and they have to deal with all the vulnerabilities that are coming from all sources. So tools is the only thing that can save you. Automation is the only thing that can save you, right? So how do you secure your organization, your applications, your ISMS, CSMS side of things, right? You have to do a lot of scanning. Secure software development lifecycle is really crucial, and that secure software development lifecycle based in the cloud can be scanned and monitored very effectively. Azure and AWS both provide you ways to set up CI/CD pipelines. Make sure that you have quality gates and you have scanning enabled at different stages of the secure software development lifecycle. Because it's just 20 minutes, it's difficult to cover everything, so I'm not going to touch SSDLC. But just as an example, there is static code analysis, there is a malware scan, a vulnerability scan, right? These are the different stages that you have in SSDLC. Enable those stages in your CI/CD pipeline, which you would have in the cloud. Also, keeping these reports secure is also important. There are recent cases where these vulnerability reports from the cloud itself were leaked because the bucket was kept open, right? So, of course, needless to say that your reports have to be secure. Constant pen testing is important. I will not name the organizations, but recently there have been places where they did good security during development, but at the time of deployment, they kept something on, right, in the cloud. And that's when hackers attacked that particular organization with that thing that they left open during deployment. So continuous pen testing is really important. That is another source of getting vulnerabilities, right? Pen testing can be both for application and ISMS side both, right? SBOM scanning is really critical. Collect SBOMs from your applications, scan them continuously. These are the low-hanging fruits. This is the best that you can do, at least to have a continuous scanning. Even if you cannot do continuous pen testing or run other tools, SBOM scanning can easily be achieved. And there are lots of ways to automate collection of SBOMs and scanning of SBOMs in Azure and AWS both, right? So because there is less of time, why is centralization important, right? You need a single source of truth. How many of the SecOps folks have dealt with, say, Log4j, which happened around 4 years back, right? So what the biggest challenge, at least, that we faced when Log4j hit was, how do we know which of the teams or within the organization are affected by Log4j? A proper asset inventory helps. So that takes me to the original point. But if you don't have a proper asset inventory, then identifying which of your assets are affected by that Log4j vulnerability is really tough. Log4j is one, but what about the latest Linux vulnerabilities or any other vulnerability that you might have, right? Looking for those vulnerabilities becomes easier if you have a unified source of truth. One single collection of all your vulnerabilities, right? Allowed the DevSecOps teams and the SecOps team to focus on further analysis, which I already covered earlier, so I'm not going to dwell on this part. And it supports with compliance and regulation requirements. Many regulation requirements have this, that you have a full visibility of all your vulnerabilities in the organization. For example, China GBT, and I'm talking from the automotive side of things, but it will apply to the normal IT regulations also. At least the China GBT says that you have tracked all your vulnerabilities and make sure that your vulnerabilities are fixed in a window of 6 months period, right? You have to show to auditors, you have to show to government authorities that you're tracking your vulnerabilities. Such a centralized management of vulnerabilities will always help you to even pass those audits and those requirements, right? So how do you do this? How do you have this centralized, and how do you manage this, right? Keep an up-to-date inventory of all your assets, your applications, your packages. That's really crucial. That's where management support comes in, right? Management has to push to the teams that they provide all information about their assets. Every time there's a new asset onboarded, that asset has to be added to the asset inventory. If you are into the development side of things, establish a CI/CD pipeline. Make sure you have continuous scanning of the at the SSDLC stage, right? Aggregate result from multiple scanners into a centralized database. Lots of databases are available from various vendors. I would just, and this is going against what I said, but I'll give an example. There are tools like Defect Dojo. It's an open source tool that helps you centralize all these reports which are coming from various sources. Centralization of reports and deduplication is really important. If you want to onboard your teams and make sure they work with you, you have to give them less noise and more information. If you have the same set of results coming from a pen test as well as coming from another scan, and you create, say, 2 tickets for it, your teams are not going to work with you, right? The teams will say, this is adding to our burden. We are already targeting a release. This is not going to work. So try to aggregate your results into a central database that also helps you deduplicate the findings, right? develop a scoring algorithm. I was in a discussion yesterday, and the team was interested in getting some kind of scoring onto the CVs. They just did not want a report output, but they wanted to have some kind of scoring based on how the application is working. Is the application working user-facing? Is the application embedded somewhere? Based on these criteria, we can tune the score and provide it to the users. Tuning of scores is possible, and this will help the teams do some kind of risk assessment even before they start dealing with the vulnerabilities. So help your teams. Integrate your dashboards with KPIs across the central database. KPIs are really important for management. It's a two-way street. The management will support and help you, but it does not happen just that you take management's help but don't provide information to the management. The management will also help you get your tickets closed or vulnerabilities closed when the team is not cooperating. So getting these KPIs to management is really important. Implement a ticketing system. If you have a centralized database, you can expose the centralized database to all the teams, which is not a advisable thing. It's a security concern. The best way to track is you have some kind of ticketing system like a Jira, and you connect your central database to the ticketing system to make sure information goes to the teams. However, make sure you isolate or compartmentalize these teams in your ticketing system, right? They should not be able to see each other's vulnerabilities. Also, Zeem is a really important thing that plays into this overall narrative. Collect logs from your virtual machines. Look at events that are happening on the machine. If there's some access trying to happen or somebody's trying to download some data from a machine, this will also tell you that some kind of attack is ongoing. It's not necessarily through a vulnerability, but it can be from a misconfiguration or some kind of user access being leaked or something, right? User password or something being leaked. So always monitor your systems, always monitor your logs, and automate activities like KPI management, SLA management. This will help your team. It'll reduce the stress on your team and help them do some more focused and quality work rather than just tracking the teams and the tickets, right? So I was going to focus on the SecOps team, but I think I just have 4 minutes. SecOps team is really important. It's not only from the IT side of things, but it can also help on the CSMS side. Incident management is really critical to set up a proper incident management for your cloud, because if you have a multi-cloud environment, right, making sure that your incident management team is integrated with the cloud providers, is integrated with your development teams. If an incident happens, you'll be able to react more quickly, right? Vulnerability management I've already covered, but getting threat intel and other kind of information helps you provide quality information to your teams, right? If some kind of attack is ongoing against an Azure cloud and you have a threat intel available and that tells you that, be aware of something that is happening in that particular kind of configuration, that also helps your team in achieving security. So some tips that I wanted to give you, I'm looking at the clock, so we can speak offline if anybody is interested. Minimize handling of unnecessary logs, right? A development team would want to onboard lots of logs, but just try to minimize handling those kind of logs. Try to use open source tools, right? Lots of open source tools are available. You know how other companies are using them. You can play with the tool, and if they needed, go to a commercial tool, right? Try to stick to a standard, maybe 27001 or any other standard that helps you make sure that you are achieving everything that would be needed from not only from compliance perspective, but what a typical organization would follow, right? So in your security journey with your SecOps team, make sure you are targeting towards a 27001 compliance. Continuous monitoring of cloud security operation is costly, right? So try to develop your own automation and your own tools that can monitor your machines and your logs, right? And safeguard your security assets within the cloud environment. So any kind of security logs that you are generating, any kind of security reports that you are generating, make sure they are well protected if they are sitting in the cloud environment, right? So as a summary, Automation is really important. We just saw that the SecOps team has less than 5 people. Without automation, you will die. You need automation. You need centralization to have a central view of all the vulnerabilities, to know the health of your organization, right? Not only of certain teams, but for the organization as a whole. Also, when you're multi-cloud, some reports are in Azure, some reports are in AWS, right? You want to collect them and look at it from a central point of view. So centralization is important. DevSecOps is really crucial. Shift left, fixing vulnerabilities in the development stage rather than production stage, right, is really important. And that would eventually lead to a resilient cloud strategy, right? So thank you.